don't give up. If they're sitting watching this podcast tonight feeling alone, you're like, well, that's fine, it's okay. Keep trying, there are people out there, and you keep the faith. I think that's great, and I think it marks Valentine's Day, doesn't it, for people who maybe don't have someone out there at the moment.
Okay. Welcome to a special Valentine's Day episode of Some Stutter Law. Naturally, this episode is about stuttering and dating. During our conversation today, our guests will be sharing the challenges and triumphs they face when navigating the unfamiliar and stressful waters of dating while living with a stutter. Thank you for joining me for this special interactive episode. We know this topic may be uncomfortable for some, but recognize it is a very important conversation to have. Before we begin, can we go around and introduce yourselves by saying your name, where you live, your occupation, and your marital status, married, single, and or currently in a relationship? I'll start. My name is Greg O'Grady. I am a person who stutters, and I'm retired and the host of Some Stutter Law, and I've been married for 32 years. Liz, we'll start with you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Liz. I'm 30. I use they, them pronouns. I live in St. John's, Newfoundland. I'm a musician, a songwriter, and a journalist. And I am single.
Sang.
Hi everyone, my name is Sang. I'm also a person who stutters, currently living in New York City, working as an IT support specialist at a local university. I'm in a relationship.
Carolina.
Hi, my name is Carolina. I'm in Toronto, Canada, and I'm a community support worker, and I'm in a relationship.
Robert.
Hi everyone, my name is Robert O'Brien. I'm living in Vancouver, but I'm originally from Dublin in Ireland. I work as a teacher and an author, and I am single.
I forgot to say that I live in Mount Pearl, Newfoundland. So welcome everybody. There is much to talk about on what I consider to be a confusing and scary topic. Before you begin to provide your individual experiences and insights about stuttering and dating, a whole bunch of ideas immediately come to mind. Words such as confidence, questions about comfort levels, identity, disclosure, whether or not to disclose, when and how one discloses, fear of consequences such as disapproval, rejection, etc., benefits of disclosure, relief, self-respect, etc. What are your individual thoughts about these words and questions based on your individual experiences? So I'll go first. I'm from Newfoundland, a small town in Harbor Grace, and I was raised in a Catholic family. And I had 5 other brothers and 1 sister, but I was the chosen one to be the priest in the family. And my parents, and as well as my brothers and sisters, were very protective of me. My parents, especially, we're going back when I was about 16 years old, 15, 16 years old. I spent a lot of my time at the altar, literally eating the altar rails. I was that religious. And but my parents, there were some girls who were very interested in me, and they used to pop by a few times to visit. In other words, they wanted to date me. My parents did not like that whatsoever. And but anyhow, I sort of left and explored the priesthood possibility. And so anyhow, but back then, because of the challenging environment, I had no confidence whatsoever, no confidence. And the advantage about I found that because I had no confidence, no feeling of self worth, because I was ashamed of my stutter, I knew I stuttered. And I started to hide and avoid. I started to develop a lot of word substitution, which many of us are so familiar with. And I found that I'm talking about the below the surface of the stutter iceberg now, which we are familiar with, a feeling of isolation. However, I had one thing going for me, and what made me feel, provided me a sense of false confidence, is that because I was meant to be a priest, I was treated differently within my community at home. However, but I was very protected, so I got along with it, hiding my stuttering. And in terms of dating, I had no interest in dating whatsoever, no interest whatsoever. But I think I was slow to mature. So when I moved to Ottawa, I spent some 2 years with the Oblates of Mary Immaculate. And but this is where I realized more and more, I could not hide anymore in terms of uh, hiding my stuttering. So I had to really sort of really in many ways my stuttering became worse, and I developed more and more secondary characteristics of the stuttering. Besides the prolongations, the repetitions, and the blocks, I used to have these secondary behaviors. Like if somebody asked me my name, I would say, "Look now, look now, look now, look now." This is my way of starting anything. So that sort of reinforced my lack of self confidence, and it reinforced the lower my feelings of self worth, shame, and so on and so forth. So in terms of confidence, in terms of self identity, I had none of that whatsoever. None of that. However, during that period, and I started to realize that there was something else wrong with me, and then I realized that I had these. Besides being a closeted covert person stutter, I was also realized more and more that I was a closeted homosexual as well. So with all the shame and everything, it added to it added to my even less self confidence. So when I started to market myself in terms of starting to go on scene, meet different, going into the gay scene, I started to hide my stuttering even more and more, which unfortunately set myself up because I learned I was able to substitute. I actually got along, so when I met people, I was fine because what I like most of all is I'm from the disco area, so I felt more confident in a noisy disco bar because nobody would hear me block whatsoever, and which means that if they didn't hear a sound, like they blamed it on the thump of the music, which really worked well. The problem was when I sort of got to know somebody, and and then they started to hear me stuttering. It was a different story, but I tried my best to hide. we should have worked against any relationship whatsoever. And so this is quickly my story, but I have so much more to tell. So who else would like to start?
I can jump in. So, like Greg, I stutter and I'm gay, and it took me until the age of 32 to come out. I ended up writing a book about the whole journey, navigating the overlap. Greg touched on the shame and the self-hate and the hiding, and having a stutter and being homosexual, it kind of reinforced each other. And really, my experience, I had attended speech therapy after university, and I had learned speech techniques to control my speech. And coming out late at 32 meant that I was ill-equipped to date. I had no idea. It was quite funny. Coming out was very easy. Everyone was very happy and thrilled. But I was left going, well, that's great, but how do I date men? And as an doing it older, you miss out. I missed out on those early teenage years of, do you meet for coffee? Do you meet for beer? Do you go to someone's house on the first date? With the stuttering, I would disclose it. I had learned enough in my therapy and speech therapy to disclose the stutter, and it took pressure off. And people were usually fine. They'd say, oh, I didn't notice because I'm also covert. And it never really became a big thing initially. And I was reading what Greg sent us earlier on these questions. As a relationship developed, it would begin to be more of an issue, like ringing to book a restaurant, for example, getting nervous, having a bad speech day, trying to educate the other person about the stutter. And then being gay and me being an egomaniac, I was like, am I a weaker man if I can't be a man like my boyfriend, if I can't ask for a beer like my boyfriend? And I had that in my head too. So it's been curious. It's a dance, but I still haven't figured it out.
So I kind of dated the first person at 19, and I things were going good, and I'm like, all right, this is good, it finally happened. And of course then things just turned out very, very bad, and it scarred me for a long time, and I just didn't feel the confidence. I'd be the social person. Everybody enjoyed being, let's go do this. But guys didn't see me as being the, oh, look at her, right? And so my body image wasn't the best. And that persisted for a really long time, a very, very, very long time. And I just kind of got accustomed to, it'll be me, and I'm going to just, go out and, with my buddies, and uh, uh, a lot of the girls from my social circle, they were also dating, so that kind of helped. But I definitely was scared about being rejected. I'm scared about talking to somebody that didn't know about my stutter, and I just kind of gave up and kind of just said, I'm pushing 39. I'm like, it's, time's going, right? And I have to say that people say, like, whenever you stop searching, then you're gonna see. And people say, I hate that. I know. I know. And I got a a a Facebook request from Sang, and it just seemed, oh yeah, that guy stutters. Okay, yeah, sure. And we kind of just started chatting, and it just took off. It did take time, but it helped us both understood the struggle of the stutter, of the past, of mocking and school and doing speeches and teachers and lots of stuff. And that definitely did build a strong foundation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Carolina. So saying Carolina mentioned you.
Oh yeah, so I guess I should go next. No, so yeah, so going back a bit, yeah, um, in my early years, it was particularly hard for me to like deal with my stutter every day, just to do the day to day chats, communicating with other people. So for the most part, because of my stutter, I would feel like ashamed. I s- I isolated. So for the most part, I like just kept to myself. I like had a small circle of friends, and they were mainly boys, and so it it's like wasn't until like a later age oh when I started to talk to girls, and mainly meeting them in class in like in like school. So for the most part, I wasn't out there just to like find a partner, look start a re- relationship. It like just kind of came came naturally, and especially with my first relationship, didn't like date until my late 20s, going in like to my early early like 30s, but then yeah, and so the like first relationship didn't work out for a, a like couple of reasons, but then as I grew uh, uh, grew older, it um dating started to be like a like higher uh, priority, and then fast forward to a bit, yeah. I was able to meet Carolina on on like Facebook, and yeah, we like just basically hit it off, mainly because we have so that many similarities, things in common, and that like really made things easier.
Mhm. Thank you, saying. Liz.
Loved all of your stories. Thank you for the vulnerability. I was so touched by what each of y'all said, but for, 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 for different reasons. Um, so I guess I'm what a lot of folks would call a covert stutterer. I guess, um, but I am of someone who stutters, and I resonate a lot with the word shame because I was visibly weird to everybody that knew me. And of course, when you're young, not when you're young, but when you're children, you don't really know, you can't really describe why. You're just like, that person's weird. I'm not sure why. Because I was very much, and I stuttered too. So it was extra hyper, extra like fast forward on the tape of me. And I later realized I was also very, very queer. So that didn't come out until I was like 10 or something. Um, Now again, everyone has different um, definitions of what queer means. Queer just means, uh, to me, it means like not straight. But I didn't realize how much it was tied to my stutter and to my relationship with identity um, until I kind of put all the pieces together and I realized that it was a part of me that I couldn't ignore and that I deserved to stand in the truth of it. So that to me, the queerness and the stuttering were really things that I couldn't try to hide anymore because it actually causes you a lot of anguish to try to hide that for somebody else's benefit, which just that doesn't sound like a good way to live. Um, my first relationship, I was 16, and I was with him until I was 25, so it's a good chunk. Um, and the first thing that I liked about him was that when I would stutter, he wouldn't look away. He wouldn't get awkward and go. He would just look into my eyes and smile. And I later learned that his little brother had a stutter. Uh, uh, so when I met him, I was 16, and he was the first person I ever met that ever stuttered that wasn't me. And he said the same thing to me. He was like, I didn't know anybody else stuttered. So there's like manners, I guess. And when you think about it, it's sad that something as simple, as basic, as polite as looking at you while you speak was this big, like, oh, wow, what a good person. Really nothing else about them. But I will say this. So I've been single now for 4 years, and that's been a lot of like, I wear this ring, but it's a wedding ring to myself. So I've been kind of doing a lot of discovery and stuff, and doing a lot of research, um, on what all of that kind of means. And the more that I meet other people that stutter, I say, wow, like so many of the things in my life that happened were a lot of it a critical crucial piece was the fact that I was a person who stuttered and didn't own it. That was a lot of it. And the shame and the lack of confidence that really affected me, especially in my line of work. I'm a linguist and I'm a journalist and I speak different languages every day. So being I said this before in with Some Stutter. People will hear a stutter and go, "Oh, you mustn't speak the language very well," which is not what's happening. So I didn't realize how much it changes how people look at you. I call it the look. When the person realizes that you stutter, they might go, or they might go. Like any of those looks, I'm sure you're all familiar with them. And I remember people that I was interested in dating, they would come to my shows because I play music too, and they'd think it was so cool, and they would talk to me, and then I would get the look, and I'm like, oh, they just realized I'm someone that stutters. Never mind. Next. So it was kind of like that. So it's a really important story that not enough of us talk about. And I mean, if you're not someone that stutters, you would hear this topic and go like, you just date. What do you mean? How do you navigate dating? But if you're a person that stutters, you go, oh, this is a sandwich. This is a lasagna of issues that needs to be addressed. And it's so much more than just one thing. There's like, I would say, a dozen factors that play into it. So I'm really grateful to be a part of this and to hear y'all's stories. And I think it's going to be a lovely talk.
Thank you very much, Liz. When I
Thanks.
think back of my experiences, that I realized, as I was saying, I had no sense of self confidence, no sense of self worth or self esteem. But I realized that I had one, besides being a covert stutterer, was able to manipulate others, my environment, whatever. I had another thing going for me: looks, and I used my looks, so which made me feel very important, very chased after, for example. I know I'm sounding very shallow, but that's my history. And it was only when I started to take speech therapy that I started to realize that what's all this smoke and mirrors all about, window dressings, whatever. And this is where I had to really sort of sit back and really sort of dig deep as to what was going on at the core level of besides the physical stutter below the surface, insecurities and whatever, because it caused me so much, I guess, heartache. As Tina Turner says, it goes beyond the physical attraction to really sort of what's love got to do with it. But now, while reflecting back on your individual experiences with stuttering and dating, the good, the bad, and the ugly, would you have approached your stuttering and dating experiences differently? If yes, why? And if not, why not?
I just say that dating's kind of a road map, and you have to go through the streets, through the valleys, the mountain tops to get to the final destination. You cannot be a successful dater if you don't date, right? And it's a trial and error. And a part of also dating would also be you have to date yourself and kind of know your own self and become a better person to be that better person for somebody.
Love that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would totally agree with what Carolina just said. My default would be I wish I had dated earlier. I wish I had come out at 16 and 17 rather than having to go through my first crush at 33, which was horrific. Um, but as I get older, in relation to our speech, I've begun to see it as a relationship with your speech and with yourself. And it's not really fair to kind of date someone. And in the past, I would have dated someone and had a lot of pressure. Are they going to accept me? That's the wrong question. Do I accept me? Can I show up fully formed or at least aware of where my blind spots are? And that's what Carolina has just pointed to. And I think that comes with age. And it's not just a speech thing. Sexuality is a thing as well. And everyone, I think we forget as stutterers, if I was short, if I was bald, if I had a mole or a birthmark, everybody deals with these kind of issues. But for the speech and for the stuttering, it's so ingrained in us, and it's such a part of our identity that it does kind of become that. It becomes our relationship with ourselves and our speech. And if we make peace with that, then we can be truly there to meet someone else and not look to them to, fix us. They can certainly understand us and support us, of course, but I've learned it's my responsibility to have that dealt with and to not expect it with someone else. And I think that comes with age.
Thank you, Robert.
And I'm still single, so I don't know if it's...
Yeah, I agree.
Don't know if it makes any sense. Sorry, Sang, I just had to put that in because it sounded very, very profound.
It's okay.
And it's like, but wait, you're also still single. So I also, I need to practice what I preach. Sorry, Sang, go ahead.
No worries.
Sometimes if things take time, right? Because your person also needs to be prepared, right? And it can seem a long time, speaking from, experience. But after you find the person, you go, oh, it's just so worth it, worth all the times, all the tears, all getting upset and mad, and it is. It's nice. It's very, very nice.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, I mean, going back to what you said about with experience comes from age. We are a lot better off now than when we began. But yeah, we are all on our own journey, whether it's with like stuttering, whether it's with relationships. There is no right or wrong, but one thing that I would like to say is that once you do be like in a relationship and you find that special someone, you are able to lean on them and then you are able to so they support each other in any
Yeah,
possible way.
and
That also
sometimes
does
it push people
make it
to
easier.
Mm-hmm.
call for pizza, even though the person says no. Somebody can nudge them. You have to call for pizza this time. Yes, that happens.
Hmm.
That happens a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, ordering on the phone is like perhaps the worst thing
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
uh, for people
Mm-hmm.
who people who like stutter.
Even even today, I hate telephones. Yeah. Liz,
Me
do you
too.
have anything to say about this?
So the question was, has it affected our approach in dating? Was that the question?
Yeah, like when you're looking back now on your experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly, would you have approached your stuttering and dating experiences differently?
Hmm. Um. I'm 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 probably going to sound a little bit naive when I say this, but I don't think so. I think in friendships I was way more repressive of who I actually was. But like I said, the first relationship I had, it was pretty obvious that I had a stutter. And he was just like, yeah, okay. So I never had to hide it. And when I pursue women, they don't really care. I think again, I don't think it's a gender thing. I think that it's, whether someone is accepting or not. But I've never conducted myself in relationships where I was, um, um, I guess, hiding a stutter, hiding parts of myself, sure. Um, I went on a date like 2 months ago with this person who had never met someone who stuttered before. And it was, the only word that I have for it is cringy, through no fault of their own. Um, uh, so like she'd never heard anyone stutter before. So whenever I would get stuck on a word, she would suggest a word to me that was usually never the right word. Um, and it reminded me of being a child because it can be quite infantilizing. When I was little, my dad, who's a lovely man, please don't judge him for this, but you don't know what you don't know. So let's say 25 years ago, if I were stuck on a word and it was an obvious word like I'd like to get a cup of he would say a turtle, and I'm like no. So that's what this person was doing, thinking it was being funny and kind of reducing the stress for me, which was not how it worked. And I asked the person, I said, have you ever met someone that stuttered before? Being kind of like being like, this is your first time meeting someone like me, isn't it? And she goes, no, I stutter. Now, I'm not going to say that she doesn't stutter, but I've never heard her stutter before. But I'm sure that you've all heard this too, when people say, oh, I stutter too, when they may just get really excited sometimes. Anyway, all I mean to say is I had to kind of educate that person, and we unfortunately have to take that role sometimes, whether we want to or not. We have to educate people, and it's really
Yeah.
hard to be gentle because it's like picking a scab, like a really old deep wound, and whenever somebody pokes at it, you're like, oh, that still hurts, and you're kind of gentle in every single time because even though you've lived that experience for like 20 years, this may be their first time doing it, so it's new for them.
Mm-hmm.
Um so I think recently I've had to be more of an educator when it comes to dating people, because when they hear I have a stutter, they usually I'm not sure if it's a Newfoundland thing, Greg, but people will, again, I'm a Newfoundlander too, I should say this, I'm a Newfoundlander too, but people will often joke about the sound, and believe me when I say it, these are my people. they're not being rude. They're just ignorant. Like they just don't know that that's hurt somebody's feelings. Like, oh, and I'm like, I actually have a stutter. And then they usually look mortified, and they'll usually give me a hug or something. But they just don't know what it's like. So I try to. It's changed how I approach my dating currently. So I guess my answer actually, after all, is yes, because I have to go in it now with a much more patient, not one of my strong suits, ironically, as a person that stutters, but with more patience and with the belief and the realization that I may be the first person they've ever met that stutters, which is tough.
Thank you, Liz. What advice and or strategies for success can you provide other people who stutter who are considering entering these unfamiliar and stressful waters of stuttering and dating for the first time? Well, my advice is if you're looking for somebody to save you, if you're looking for somebody to reinforce a sense of self-worth, don't date. You really need to be authentic. You really need to find out who you are because this is lessons learned from my past experiences because the more that I sort of had all these smoke and mirrors, I was really sort of giving the other person my sense, my power, and I was losing my own sense of identity and individuality, which I hadn't done anyhow. But all my emphasis was getting a pat on the back, approval, whatever. So really, in one sense, I was becoming my own bully, and in many ways that I was defeating any hope of developing any sense of self worth. So it's a journey, and it's a journey towards authenticity, and it can be a lifetime journey. It's a lifetime journey. But I think we were all saying the same thing. I think we need to be authentic and be honest from the very beginning with
And
ourselves. We've got to find
I'd
ourselves.
also
Go ahead, Carolina.
say be unapologetically to be silly, be sad, be excited, be upset, because the person is gonna accept the entire package. And I can be really, really silly and see the.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I would I would say it may sound cliche, but just be yourself. Be like like true true to yourself. Know like who you are, and when you're approaching the start of a re, relationship, just I would say have a different different sense of expectations when meeting the other person. Don't like be hard on them if like they don't fully understand your like situation, your like stutter. Give them a like a chance to learn to understand you, and then if it like and then if it doesn't work out the first time, you know, you can um, you can move on to the find to find someone more compatible with you. So it's all a matter of you know um, moving out of your comfort zone a bit and exploring, you know, testing the like waters on like until you like find that perfect match or so.
Mm.
Yeah, I
Robert?
I think firstly we should acknowledge that everybody or most people get nervous dating. It's not unique to us. And I think there's a space there to be aware. We do tend to think it's just us. The person on the other side of the date could be just as nervous. And that's where we actually have an opportunity. The vulnerability to talk about having a stutter could open up a conversation. And you can also gauge how the other person reacts, like Sang said. And like I think Liz said, we may need to educate this other person, and that could be a great conversation to have. But I think the most important thing is around self-worth. We do deserve to find love just like everybody else. And this thing about needing to fix our speech before, I used to think if I was fluent I would just magically find someone. And again, the age and the experience have tempered that, where it's like, well, no, if it isn't a stutter, I'd find some other thing to knock my own self-worth down. And I think that's where we should be cautious when we're going into any
Mm.
situation, whether it's a date or a job or a telephone call. We deserve to live a life as full as everyone else. But that being said, when it's a date and you have expectations, yeah, you do want to find that perfect someone. I mean, of course. And I think it's just being kind to ourselves and kind to the other person, and patience. We'll see what happens, and to keep getting out there. You can't expect
Mm-hmm.
someone to just turn up. I think if you want to meet someone, there is a responsibility to take the actions to put yourself out there. So but it's a very human thing. I think it's a very human thing. Like, we often talk about stuttering as a very specific issue, but dating is rather broad and there's a lot of overlap. So yeah, that's what I think.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Robert. Liz?
Yeah, there are too many favorite quotes from each one of you to fit them all into what I'd like to say. I loved what Sang said about giving the other person the opportunity to learn. I love that. Oh, um, and what Carolina and Robert both said about self-worth is really, really big. That's been my lesson last year, and I hope the lesson stays around for as long as I do, quite frankly. Um, and that you can date and be your full realized self as a person who stutters. I didn't know that was a thing that we could do. So when I was in speech therapy, I think I was in like elementary school and then I stopped in junior high. The thing was to cure it, and that was the word they would use. Bless their hearts. That was the word. Actually, even in French, I had a dear friend of mine, give me a book that said "guérir mon bégaiement," to heal my stutter, and I was like, wow, is it a disease? And it just totally changes the way that you view it. Um, and that one day we kind of have this mentality of like, oh, I'll be happy when, or I'll find somebody when, but you actually can find somebody and be happy now. And you don't have to change anything. That, like, I mean, of course, show up as your best self, of course, but that you as yourself, you are already whole. No one's perfect, but we're all
Yes.
complete. So that's what I would give as advice to little me, and that's what I would give as advice to anyone that stutters, that wants to get involved in dating. Yes, darling?
Oh no! After you're
Oh, Liz,
done.
no, I'm totally good. I'm just grateful, and I'm just in awe of
Okay,
y'all.
I just was gonna say enjoy the ride. Enjoy it. Enjoy the ups and downs and meeting people, and also take your time dating, meeting, doing stuff. Sometimes people meet somebody and, okay, well, now you got, just take your time and enjoy life together.
Hmm.
Also,
Mm.
Well,
yeah.
I'm just thinking that we have touched on one of the questions. The next question I was going to ask, like, and that's like, what advice for individuals who stutter that, based on their previous unsuccessful dating experiences, may have decided to step away from attempting to find the right mate? Do you have any advice for not giving up on the quest? And so I feel that we've touched on that in many ways, because just to look
Mm-hmm.
at the five of us here tonight, we all have histories. We all have histories of successful relationships, unsuccessful relationships, but we kept going. And I think the most important thing is Carolina hit it on the head as well. You've got to be, you have to, well, you can't step up. You got to be gentle with yourself and keep on trying. You know what I mean? And it's like two steps forward, one steps backwards. It's almost like we learn from our experiences, but don't let our negative experiences shut down everything. You know,
Yeah.
and I think is I feel it's like looking at the five of us here tonight being so open and honest, and Liz brought this up earlier as well, that just to come on this some start a lot tonight to talk about this sensitive, vulnerable area where we're very vulnerable, yet just to look at the five of us, we are accomplishments based on our history, based on our, it's almost like as if we need to embrace and befriend our negative experiences as part of us moving towards authenticity, and also being for the our partner as well. So we learn, and I think that's the only way we can do
Mm-hmm.
is just keep testing the waters, but don't give up the quest. Anything else to add to that?
No, I think that's great, and I think
So
it marks Valentine's Day, doesn't it, for people who maybe don't have someone out there at the moment. Don't give up. If they're sitting watching this podcast tonight feeling alone, you're like, well, that's fine. It's okay. Keep trying. There are people out there, and you keep the faith.
Yeah.
and do something special for yourself, as one of you said that
Mm-hmm.
date yourself, do something special on yourself for yourself on Valentine's
Mm.
Day. Well, one last question is that, and this calls for another uh, second some sort of law episode, a follow up episode. But anyhow, our last question: does being a person who stutters give you any special qualities that people who don't stutter might lack in the world of dating? Example, are we better listeners? Do you want me to reread the question?
No?
I think I'm good. It's just a really great question. I'm really thinking about it. That's a good question.
It was. Yeah.
You're on your game, Greg.
Yeah.
I think self-awareness.
Well, you see,
Sorry. I would think
oh no, Robert,
No, yeah. I mean, obviously, listening and patience, and I think we would be very honest. We, give a lot of ourselves, but I think as daters, self-awareness is what comes to me first. Like when you have a
Mm-hmm.
bad date and you're like, oh, everyone's wrong, and I just haven't found the right person, and then you come home and you think, now, being on 20 dates, what's the common element? And you have to begin to look at ourselves. And just as people who stutter, I think we are more in introspective, and we are more aware of what I think we have to offer too, because we have qualities outside of our stutter. And I think just by the nature of the beast, that self awareness comes in, which on the dating side I think can be very beneficial. You can take responsibility for yourself, and that I think is
Mm-hmm.
actually quite sexy. I think people would find that very sexy too. Here's someone who isn't afraid to admit when they're wrong. Here's someone who isn't afraid to admit what they
Yep.
want. And so
Totally.
that I think is a huge thing. And that I mean, I've felt it. I'm very clear on who I am, good and bad. And I care less as I get older about sharing that, because you're like, look, if we have a 40-minute coffee date, okay, here's the good, here's the bad, take it, leave it, and it's actually very empowering, and that's what I think we would bring.
You're beautiful.
mm-hmm.
Love that. Yeah. Honesty really comes to mind too. I agree. Self-awareness for sure. I'm going to say insight as well. We're kind of like hyper aware. It can actually be a problem sometimes, but let's just talk about it as a good thing. Um, Another thing that I think people who stutter that we're particularly adept at is choosing our words with intention. Because especially if it's a hard topic, like emotionally to get into, or whether we know they contain a lot of sounds, or like, I don't want to say problem sounds, but like sounds that we might get stuck on. If we know how important it is to speak up and to say what you want to say. So I feel like that's a really good quality too. Um, and I agree with what Greg said. I think that we're actually better listeners because we know how important it is to feel heard. And I think it's only fair that whenever somebody gives you the opportunity to speak and they listen, we don't take that for granted. Um, that's what comes to mind for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would say that.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. I'll be quick. I'll just say that. Yeah. In addition to be a better like listener, people who like stutter tend to be more compassionate, to be able to like be more on our emotional side, be empathetic, sympathetic to like the other person. We uh, uh we would be able to like put our vulnerable side out there, and then to like not be afraid to like let the other other person know, because
Mm-hmm.
it it'll be for like particularly hard for us to hide the fact that we like like stutter. So why did I just put your like self out there?
Yeah.
It's like I believe you alluded to this earlier, Robert. That people who stutter, non-people who stutter, we have to be sensitive and supportive of each other in terms of we have to be aware that we're both treading in unfamiliar waters here. And I think because we as people who stutter have, well, there's no comparison, but we're very vulnerable, but we are learning from our vulnerabilities, which means that we're able to be honest with this person. And I think there's an opportunity for a non-person who stutters to realize how important it is to be vulnerable and open and honest, because you're saving a lot of time in any potential relationship.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll also just say that I'm somebody that'll put my best foot forward. I'll be prepared. I'll plan, and that can stem back to the stutter. You gotta prepare to speak. You gotta kind of know how you're gonna say some thing, and I'm a pretty organized person, and that just helps. Me to feel better, right? I'm prepared. I know, and I'm gonna do my very best. And if my very best doesn't suit somebody, well then, bye bye.
Love it.
So true. So does anyone else have any last pearls of wisdom now?
Good.
I'll just say, and maybe saying can also chime in. But I have to say that I've really enjoyed these last 5 years of getting to know Sang, of dating Sang. And yeah, there's been a lot of tough times. There's been a pandemic. There's been a border shut down. But I've been happy, so happy and glad. It took this time because I felt prepared to date somebody, to give to somebody. And so yeah, so just have to be patient. Okay, guys.
Mm,
Thank you, John.
that's great, Carolina. Thank you. Saying you want to add to that?
And absolutely,
Yeah.
I feel feel the exact same way. We we have like learned so much from each other, and no, we are only able to like grow from here. So it's been wonderful, and yeah, we are a good example of like what can happen if like you would put put your like your like self out there. Don't be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm.
well, whether it's meeting another person who who also stutters. That's like a added plus. That's like that's like winning the like lottery. You know. So yeah, go for it.
It's so true, saying, and I'm just thinking, listening to you and Carolina speak. You see, Robert and Liz aren't aware of that. Uh, Carolina and Robert were guests on Some Stutter Law for Valentine's Day last year, and so we had a great conversation, and it's amazing based on what I see now that your relationship is flourishing. So there's a lot of love, there's a lot of caring, and yes, I mean there's a lot of give and take, but still, you both are great role models for people who stutter, who are sort of are challenged with stuttering and dating. So thank you both again for being on this Valentine's Day. But in many ways, the been five of us are so blessed. We're so blessed that just to be here today to share our lived experiences, to share our vulnerable abilities, that says something. And so just to be here, I mean we are accomplishments, and hopefully our listeners will realize that it is a journey, and being honest is dating, and starting a dating is definitely a challenge. But in many ways, we're all success stories, and we have to keep this in mind. Acknowledge the negatives, acknowledge the challenges, but we learn. And I was reading a little statement early on this week. And you mentioned as well, Carolina. It's not the journey that counts. I mean, it's not the finished product that counts. It's a journey. It is a journey of reconstruction, getting to know who we are and the lessons that learn. It's all part of that journey and recognizing that. So,
Yes.
thank you all very much for being part of Some Stutter Law. And so the four of you have made my Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
So thank you very much
Aw.
because we really have learned. We've learned. So
Thanks.